Alrighty. Well, welcome everyone. I am super excited to be sitting here with Manny Magno. Is it Magno? Magno?
Yeah, yeah, Magno.
Beautiful. And Manny, you've been, inside of the Graystone ecosystem for a couple years now. So I'm super excited to unpack your journey, and I think it'll be a super valuable conversation for folks listening.
Cool.
So I'd love to start, Manny, by just sort of understanding what initially made you, explore earning income from the stock market and take action on joining our program.
Back in 2022, I think I'm 3 years now
Wow.
in the Graystone. Yeah, that's amazing. In the Graystone universe, um, I was fortunate enough to have made some good investments when I was much younger.
Okay.
So I was actually able to retire 10 years ago, just before I turned 52. Um, and at the same time, I moved my mom up here from St. Augustine down in Florida. And I was fortunate to be able to be in the position to take care of her. And she lived with us here for 9 years until she passed just recently. So being able to have that time, and that's what the whole Graystone options and now futures um, has my intent was to free up as much time as I possibly could, and it's been fantastic. Um, for close to 30 years, I worked in the petroleum and then facilities management and engineering industries. Um, Again, as I said, fortunate to be able to that I made some pretty good investments 25 years ago, or thereabouts, that put me in the position to be able to retire just in time to be able to take care of my mom. So, very, very grateful, very fortunate. Um, as time has gone on, you know, I my background is in engineering, so I have kind of a need to know how things work. And when it became possible for people to actually start managing and trading their own portfolios, what was that, maybe 5, 6 years ago, something like that. Um, I own a number of stocks, and they do just fine. But I always, would keep seeing little blurbs here and there about, can you make another thousand, $3,000, $5,000 a month? And I thought, well, hell yeah, I could. Um, so I actually got on. I think I saw you on an Instagram 3 years ago, and I responded yes, right, or whatever the keyword was, right.
Right.
And that's how we ended up, getting connected up. And my intent was to just to see, can I make this work? Can I do it? How hard will it be? What will it demand from me in terms of time, focus, and concentration? Um, again, my intent was to, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 a month. And it took a little while, quite honestly. Back at that time, you were running the trades, right? So you were the one doing all the trades in the morning. And then Nick followed you, and now we have, Ryan, Jerry, Lewis, Thomas over on the future side. Um, so I learned that it's really not that hard to do. The Greystone system works better than I thought it would when it was you guys first described it to me. I'm like, no way. It can't be this easy. Well, it's not easy, but by the same token, it's not hard either. If you have the time and the focus and the patience more than anything else. Um, because unfortunately, you learn by, in this case, making mistakes, which means making bad trades, or not making good trades, or making a good trade and not letting it play out, or taking a bad trade and letting it play out too far.
Yep.
Um, so, over the course of the last 3 years, I started becoming profitable. Oh man, maybe 6, 7, 8 months in. and now for the last just about the last 2.5 years, I've been consistently profitable. My initial goal was around 3,000 a month. I'm doing a lot better than that now. Um, the way, I'm not so much focused on let me grow my account a percent a week, or or 3% or 5% or whatever that is. Rather, I took the approach of let me see if I can set a goal for the day. Can I make $100 a day? Can I make $200 a day? Can I make $300 a day? Um, because when you do the math, that comes out to having a 10-hour a week job, and you're making 35, 40, 50, 60,000 a year, which is very, very hard to resist. Um, but for the last roughly 2.5 years, um, I I would say my average month um, trading options is between seven to $10,000 a month.
Right. Which is absolutely incredible. And
Unbelievable.
yeah. So thank you for sharing all of that. You gave a ton of awesome context, and there were some really I think golden nuggets that you shared in there as well. One, the first of which that I want to focus on is that it's it's not a hard system that we teach, and it's very simple, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily the easiest thing in the world. And if it was
Right.
the easiest thing in the world, of course, everyone would be doing it. But on the other hand, at least for me growing up, and my dad was on Wall Street and working at hedge funds, and to me it seemed like this obscure world where you had to be either a math genius or a finance genius, or in the case of my father, a geopolitical sort of macro economist genius. And I was none of those things. Yet I was able to, tinker around and over the course of many, many months create this system that is very simple. And once it becomes sort of muscle memory, that's when it, truly does feel somewhat effortless. And so you mentioned it took you about 6, 7 months to eclipse that profitability. And it sort of seems like at this point it's more or less like riding a bike. You're
Yeah, very much. I mean, when I get up and turn on my charts and look, I know what I'm looking for. Um, and that's because of what you guys taught us, specifically yourself, teaching us, looking for key levels, watching for what the candles are trying to tell us. And and as simple as it sounds now, to say 3 years later, um, it wasn't so simple back in 20, mid 2022, late 2022, um, when I thought I could read candles, but really I couldn't.
right,
So, the more time you spend um, watching charts, it's invaluable. You become a better driver by driving a car.
right.
Okay, you become a better, similarly, you become a better and more aware investor by watching the charts, and there's really no way to get around that. Um, but once I knew what to look for because of what the Graystone system teaches us, um, it became very, matter of fact almost.
Hmm.
Um, the only problem that I have, and that I still have to some degree, is over trading. Like, wow, that one was simple. Let me see if I can get another one. And the minute you start to think that you have a handle on it, is when it jumps up and gets you. Um, I was looking at my numbers the last couple of months, and for example, the month of July, we've had what, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. Today is my 11th trading day for the month of July, and I'm 9-2.
Wow.
Nine green days and two poor days, and one of those days I lost like $50, but it's
Right.
still a loss, right? But as far as my goals for the month, looking back at what they would have been 3 years ago, I'm already there. I could, in theory, take the rest of the month off and I would have met my goal for the month of July. However, once you reach a goal, then you want to try and set one a little bit higher and keep going after that. Um, but what I really wanted to get out of Graystone, and I'm getting that now, is the ability to free up time. I'm
Right,
not
right.
I'm
So
not spending 8 hours a day on charts. Maybe two and a half or three. If that first trade in the morning works out and I hit my daily goal, then boom, I'm done. And I can go do other things. Now, other things at this point in time now means futures and
right.
hanging in yacht club with Thomas and that gang. And that, I mean, that's a new challenge and it's a lot of fun. And I'm getting close to being profitable now.
Right.
So that's
Yeah,
been
so
that's been great.
that's fascinating, and something I want to talk about as well is the transition, or not the transition, but adding on and supplementing what you're doing with options with futures, which I think is fantastic. But talk to me about what that's been like to be able to free up that time. I think for lots of folks that are interested in getting started, are just getting started with Greystone, it's either that they want more time or they want more money, right?
Right.
There,
Yeah.
there's really nothing aside from those two pieces. And
Yeah.
I think what's more common is more money. I think for a lot of people that are working professionals, they're sort of stuck at a certain income level. Right? If you're 30, 40, 50 years old, it's very challenging to see a very significant, sizable increase in your annual income. So for lots of those folks, it's, hey, how, an extra $5,000 a month, an extra 60, 70, $80,000 a year goes a really long way in terms of lifestyle and being able to just, not worry about taking your family out to a nice dinner or going on a trip or a vacation. That wasn't the case for you. You mentioned you had really strong investments that you made many years ago, which that's absolutely amazing. I think, lots of people in your position, around your age, are kicking themselves for not being wiser when they were younger. So I commend you for that. I think it's very difficult for young people to have that sort of long-term thinking and really be putting money in the right places. So you did a beautiful job there. And it sounded like for you, a lot of that time was about being able to take care of your mother. Or
Sure. Yeah.
were there
Yeah.
other things beyond that
Um,
that you were sort
oh
of.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of I started with Greystone fairly late. I was 58, 59 years old. Now, many of the folks who are new, both on, the option side and the future side are, God bless them, much younger. So you have a lot more time. Um, you know, for me, allowing being able to take care of my mom was a huge deal. Um, I have four sons that played college baseball. The two younger ones, I was able to go to just about every game they played in their college careers, at Ohio State and at Northwood University up in Michigan. Um, I recently, thought about all the years that I coached and the games that I attended. I've probably been to something north of 2,000 ball games over the course of, the last 30 years, 40 years. Um, and certainly being able to free up time to take care of mom and also to, be able to see my kids play ball, um, is something I could never have done if I was still working. So, one of my thoughts in getting started, along with the time was, hey, I'm making X number of $1,000 a year um, in my current job. How long would it take me to replicate that level of income trading and investing? Well, it didn't take very long, quite honestly. Um, if I could do it, everybody else out there, you guys watching, you can do it too. There are plenty of examples. I know, Ryan's story and Jerry's story. They put admittedly, they put a whole lot more work into their trading than I have. And consequently, they're doing, I suspect, much better than I am, but I'm doing okay. And I'm not complaining. So in essence, I have been able to replace my income. Um, I was probably able to start doing that about a year ago. So it didn't take very long. And I'm not spending, um, 16 hours a day looking at the charts.
Right.
Maybe, a long day might be 3.5, 4, if that,
Right.
including yacht club. So, just for me, again, the value of being able to participate with Graystone has been the freeing up of time. I mean, yeah, there's money and money's good. But when you get up into your 50s, your early 60s and beyond, hopefully, um, nothing replaces time.
Right.
So, that's been a huge thing for me.
Yeah. What would you say your next goal is now that you've seen what's possible?
Um, I'd like to go ahead and see if I can get to, what, for example, Ryan talked recently, and I'd heard him speak before about his first $100,000 month.
Right.
Um, and I'd like to see if I can do that. I mean, my best month trading options has been just short of 30,000.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing. I can't imagine being able to do that even 5 years ago. So, you know, and what that means is I've got to make better trades. I've got to exercise some discipline. Um, Nowadays, I might take, at least options wise, I might take three trades in a day, maybe four. Where prior to that, I'd lose a trade. I got to get back in.
Hmm.
I've got to make that money back. And sometimes you can, but most times you can't. So the quality of the trades that I'm taking has improved tremendously just by following the Greystone option rules, risk management, watching what the charts, reading the story that the charts are telling us, taking solid setups. It does work. It absolutely works.
Yeah. Have you tried any other education program teaching anything related to trading stocks, options, etc., or any other make money online opportunity in general?
I look at them. I look at them and then look at uh, listen to a few introductions and things of that nature, but
Hmm.
nothing really grabbed my attention. The Even now, just to see what other people are offering out there, nothing is as simple as what Graystone offers. Not by a long shot. Your training, the videos and all of those things that come when you start out are really very simple and easy to understand, and easy to put into practice if you allow them to work. Right. Um, I have a bad habit of thinking I'm smarter than the situation in front of me.
Right.
And every now and again, yeah, you luck out and you are, or things, or a trade will run the exact way you think it will. Um, you know, However, being good in this industry, means that you're right maybe 60% of the time. Where everywhere else I'd ever been, except with baseball, 60% is a failing grade, right?
Right.
You know,
Right.
if as a ball player though, if you hit 300, you're going to the Hall of Fame. If you're hitting 60% trading options using the Greystone method, you're going to make it. And then the rest is up to you. How much am I willing to scale up or scale down? Or in my case, I like what I'm doing. Let me scale up a little bit and see if I can keep growing this. Um, you know, it this has been, quite the highlight of the last 3 years for me.
Yeah, that's incredible. That makes me just absolutely so glad to hear. What would you say to someone who's sort of on the fence about getting started, going on this journey of their lives? Maybe they're a little bit nervous about, learning a completely brand new skill. That can be intimidating, right? Oftentimes, when you're a kid, when you're 12, 13, 14 years old, and there's the opportunity to learn a new skill, you don't shy away from it. But I think as we get older, it can be intimidating. You think you're sort of set in your ways. You've hit sort of a particular ceiling in terms of your intellectual capabilities, and it can feel a little bit intimidating. It can feel, like maybe you don't have the time or the bandwidth. What would you say to someone who's sort of grappling with the idea of pursuing this opportunity to change their life?
Um, I would say, using my own experience, that, you have to trust the system. And it's so easy to say, right? I mean, hey, trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Do this, do that, do it this way, do it that way. Um, and, as we get older, where, most people are um, less adventurous for whatever reason. Maybe we have more to protect, or less to lose, or less time to make it back in the event that we do lose.
Right.
And that's incredibly, I mean, that's a very powerful emotion. By the same token, though, I once had a mentor of mine tell me, many years ago, that in your lifetime, you will have maybe 3 or 4 opportunities to change your life. The question you have to ask yourself is this the first one, the second one, the third one, or the fourth one? Um, I think most people, all of us, I think, looking back in retrospect, can say, "Wow, I wish I'd done this," or "I wish I'd done that." In my own case, when I was in grad school back in the late '80s, I was working in the computer lab at Loyola University in Chicago, where I was getting my master's degree. And, because I had an engineering background, the director of the computer center asked me if I wanted to work with the new microcomputer team. Right about that time, um, some of the older folks who see this will remember that uh, personal computers started becoming a little more widespread in the late 1980s. It got to the point where I was a hardware guy: install disk drives, install memory, do this, do that, the other thing. My background was in chemical engineering. I never did any of the hardware stuff when I was in college,
Hmm.
but over the course of time, you know, uh, I learned how to install all of these things in computers, get them running, and, do tech support and all of that. And then when I graduated, I got a job in the petroleum industry, and I never looked back at computers, and look what happened. I on many occasions I'm like, damn it, what the heck was I thinking about? Nobody's going to have a computer in their home. I think the chairman of IBM, Watson, said that many years ago. People will never want a computer in their home. Well, where are we now? Right? There are computers all around us. We interact with dozens of computers on a daily basis, and man, it would have been fun to be in on the ground wave of that. Um,
Right.
but you never know. I mean, so in this particular case, I can't. There are very few things that come to mind that are legal, where you can spend relatively small amounts of time, and be able to make very, very good money. Um, so, but the other side of that is, you have to be willing and open-minded enough to trust the system. You've got to give it an even shot. You can't be, it's natural to be cautious, but, here in the Graystone groups, I mean, there are numerous success stories. Just regular folks. I mean, we're all just regular people. Um, and I would say, if you really want to make this happen, you have to trust the system. Give it an honest run, and if it works for you, then great. If it doesn't, then it is what it is. But the system works. I can vouch for that, and I'm sure there are several dozen people who could do the same thing who might be watching this video at the same time.
Yeah. Manny, thank you so much for sharing. This was a very special conversation on many accounts. Especially for me, I started Greystone in December of 2020. We really incorporated at the very beginning of 2021. And we were, very, very, very small company, especially that first year. So you were really in that first cohort of students when we really became a real serious coaching program. And it's incredible to hear your journey. And it was an overnight success. It wasn't that you started hitting these amazing numbers and hitting your goals in the first day or the first week or in the first month. It took you 6 7 months. And you mentioned while that's not overnight success, it's also not the multi year long journey that's required in virtually every other traditional career path. Um, and
Very true.
I think what you alluded to as well, and that there's just such few opportunities where you can earn this sort of income with such little time commitment. I think that in itself can make folks skeptical because it is indeed so hard to come by. I personally don't know of anything else where you can do that. Generally speaking, if you want to be in a vehicle that doesn't cap you at a certain income number, where you're sort of the entrepreneur, earning more comes with hiring more employees, buying more inventory, dealing with more logistics. As a business owner, owning Greystone Trading, I can tell you that
Yep.
that is certainly the case, right? Growing comes with a lot of growing pains, whereas it's
Yeah.
not it's not the same with trading. So I think you shared tremendous insights for folks listening, and I thank you very much for coming on to share your journey.
Thanks for having me. It's great being a part of Graystone.
Alrighty, take care, Manny.
Thanks.